The Galaxy may have no choice but to pedal away their top scorer. Anthony Davis is out at least a week, and despite missing most of the season, the Chargers' Asante Samuel remains in line for a big payday. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. It's January 30th, 2025. It is a glorious morning because tomorrow I'm going to be returning home. I can't wait. We also added a new subscriber to the Angeleno Familia. Thank you for getting in on the ground floor. We're going to do our best to keep you informed. And if you like being in the know about LA sports, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist, and by all means comment. Now, before we go through the news and notes, a look at the scoreboard. Clippers 128, San Antonio 116. The minutes restriction for Kawhi Leonard has allegedly been lifted, and he responded with a game-high 27 points. Norman Powell also scored 27. James Harden and Ivica Zubac each added 21. Florida 3, Kings 0. Ick. However, there is a ray of sunshine. Drew Doughty played 24 minutes in his first game of the season. He snapped an ankle during an exhibition game. We hadn't seen him since. He was on the ice, however, for two of the Panthers' goals. Not exactly ideal for a defenseman. To make room for him, Samuel Angelenos has been sent to the IE. My condolences. Meanwhile, today, the Lakers are at Washington at 4. 16th ranked Oregon is at UCLA at 7:30. Look, the Bruins have crawled back up to 5th in the Big Ten Conference, and that is a plus, no doubt. The minus, the final 10 games of the regular season includes 4 against ranked teams, including tonight. And among the remainder, there's a rivalry match with USC. So they've got some momentum. We need to see how much. Also, the Kings are at Tampon Bay at 4, and let's get to the news. Is it time for Galaxy fans such as myself to panic? Or maybe to go to the local AM/PM and just buy case after case of hopium, because a report has surfaced that Liga MX giant Tigres has placed a bid for Galaxy forward Dejan Joveljic, the team's leading scorer. Now, it is true that there are very precious few soccer reporters to trust. I've been screaming that like a mantra. Well, this report came from Tom Bogert. Tom Bogert is one of them. Taken in a vacuum, losing a forward who has yet, by the way, to reach his physical prime. He's only 25. A guy who stepped in for an international superstar, Chicharito, and only answered that cause by scoring 22 times last year. A guy who scored the game-winning goal in MLS Cup final. In a vacuum, you look at that, and it almost makes you feel like the gif of the dude laughing while he's faking suicide in about a dozen ways. But this is not in a vacuum. Should Joveljic go? In barely a month after hoisting their 6th MLS Cup, the Galaxy parted with midfielders Mark Delgado, Gaston Brugman, and a former starting center back in Jalen Neal, all to create salary cap space. There is very little positive to say about such a move with opening day for MLS less than a month away. We have to be honest and deal with reality when it comes to that. And yet, selling Joveljic in a transfer would be a textbook example of buying low and selling high. Right? The brash Serbian is coming off a career year when you consider his previous high was 12 goals. Joveljic's in the final year of his contract. And honestly, I always tell people about belief in God. Let's say you're an atheist. Soccer is about as pure an example of natural selection, of Darwinism, that there is in world sports. MLS clubs often scoop up players from smaller leagues by flashing a little cash. Then a bigger whale comes floating along, and guess what happens? Now, how large the bid is, we don't necessarily know. But consider how the Galaxy and LAFC have had to handle their business in the offseason. There were articles a month ago claiming that Premier League teams would pay as much as $25 million for Joveljic's teammate, Gabriel Peck. Now, I doubt a Liga MX team would pay even half that. But if somebody flashed you $25 million, that so-called indecent proposal looks pretty damn decent, right? That check alone would have paid, in that theory, that check alone would have paid for the Galaxy payroll entirely. Within the last week, talking about LAFC, Cruz Azul dropped $10 million on LAFC for Matus Bogusz. Again, one man paying off the tab for most of the roster. Now, where MLS ranks in the American sports landscape is up for debate, but it damn sure doesn't have the financial heft of Major League Baseball. If you're the Galaxy, strapped for cash in terms of how much salary cap space you have, with a player that's due for a major raise, and someone comes along and says, hey, I'll pay for him and a percentage of the rest of your roster, you have no choice but to make that move, even though there is no replacement that we know of on the horizon. Now, should the Galaxy make the move, in addition to getting money, it would create about $3 million in general allocation money, which is a rudimentary way of saying salary cap space. As for replacements, I'd have no idea. Joveljic a couple of years ago was the super sub for Chicharito. The Galaxy do not have a super sub. The current one is Miguel Berry. So, yeah, they're hitting the Rolodex looking for a replacement as we speak. Now, again, Joveljic is still wearing Galaxy gear, but the clock sounds like it's ticking. And for the 6-time MLS Cup champs, that's an ish. Anthony Davis is out at least a week due to an abdominal strain that he suffered early against Philadelphia. The guy's had an MRI. He flew back to LA, which means he's going to kick back for the rest of the current Lakers road trip. Now, if you're an analytics spaz, this matters because the Lakers, when Davis is not on the court, rank bottom 5 in defensive metrics. Now, that's analytics. In practical terms, it just goes like this. Without him, the Lakers are teeny-weeny. They are a bunch of munchkins out there in basketball world. Backup center Jackson Hayes, yeah, he's 7 foot, but he never contributes. He's only on the court for 16 minutes per game, averages about 5 points, and he's on that bench for a reason. So the Lakers have gone to other options. Dorian Finney-Smith, who, by the way, is only 6'8", but he defends anywhere from point guard to center. They started him at the 5 in the second half at Philadelphia. Meanwhile, if you look at the Lakers' depth chart, the first backup center on the roster, well, it's not Hayes, it's Jared Vanderbilt, who is 6'8" as well, and he just returned after missing an entire calendar year due to injury. Now, to be honest, I don't know how much this is going to damage the Lakers, because if they beat Washington tonight, and Washington is a terrible team, they'll remain in 5th in the Western Conference. Now, granted, that's 1.5 games out of being in the play-in round, but 5th still is a pretty decent seed. After the Wizards, now you're looking at Karl Anthony Towns with the Knicks and the Clippers before you return home to face Golden State. And by the time you return home to face Golden State, you might be getting Davis back. So we're talking about 3 games, one of which is winnable. Asante Samuel's contract year couldn't have gone much worse on the field because he only played in 4 games. Only participated in 13 tackles. He missed the rest of the year with a shoulder injury. And yet, that did not stop Pro Football Focus, or PIF, from taking a calculated stab of what the new contract would be. They estimate he would get 3 years at $43.5 million. Now, the average would place Samuel among the top 15 in terms of cornerback pay. So he probably lost millions in negotiations just by missing almost the entire year. But is that enough of a discount to stay in powder blue? The Athletic is suggesting the Chargers can afford to be aggressive in the offseason. If this were last offseason, that wouldn't happen at all. The Bolts were $50 million over the salary cap. Samuel probably would have been gone before Keenan Allen, all things being equal. But this offseason, you have any number of ranges of cap space. One that I want to give you is $47 million. We don't know the official amount of cap space yet. The NFL hasn't announced it. But if you consider that you have X amount, you have to remove some of that to pay for your draft picks, you're going to have $47 million left over. So the question the Chargers will face becomes, can you keep Samuel while simultaneously bolstering your interior offensive line, adding at least one receiver with actual hands and fingers, and possibly extending Rashawn Slater at tackle? That is the Chargers offseason in a nutshell. And to do so, to accomplish all those 4 priorities, does that mean other expensive players have to get the axe? You could say, for example, maybe Trey Pipkins has to go on the offensive line. But now that contract for Joey Bosa is looking kind of iffy. The Dodgers reached a deal with reliever Alex Vesia, which is great because it means they don't have to go to arbitration. But where does he fit in with a bullpen that is stuffed more than Kelly Clarkson after Thanksgiving? We've been talking also a bit about Dodger prospects over the last couple of weeks, and I've wondered aloud if it still qualifies as elite. Because these media outlets, they'll publish their top 100 or so, and the Dodgers will only have 4, maybe 5. And inevitably, one of the 5 is out for the year because he got injured, which makes it 4. And that sounds kind of average. I think the scribes are hedging their bets. Take The Athletic. The Athletic had only 4 active Dodger players in the top 100. Nobody in the top 15. Doesn't sound elite. And yet the scribe came back and said, yeah, they've got the 3rd best farm system in the game. Now, I'm not trying to tell you the Dodgers farm system is terrible. For clarity, I'm suggesting that the message that we're getting from the scribes is incoherent. If your system is elite, you've got to have a couple of elite players in there, wouldn't you think? Right? So, which is it? We don't know. Now, if you're curious, Seattle and Boston rank ahead of LA. One thing we've learned through the years watching Sean McVay's Rams is they don't value linebackers. Linebackers to the Rams are like the girl that you meet at last call when you're at the bar, right? You'll take it, but you're not exactly looking to put a ring on it, right? Through the years, with different defensive coordinators, the Rams kept shying away from game changers at the second level. The one year that they had an elite linebacker, that was Bobby Wagner, and they only won 5 games. But CBSSports.com has joined a chorus of scribes, a chorus of media outlets. Yes, they are all singing on the same page, begging the Rams to address linebacking, particularly those who play off the ball. Now, I'm not calling them idiots on this. Their rationale is sensible because they didn't have anybody to stop Saquon Barkley in 2 games, including a playoff game where they got eliminated. Because the defensive line, they can get to the quarterback, they're quick, but they're also a little bit small. So I can't really argue that help would be needed at linebacker. And yet there's a counterpoint. The salary cap is designed specifically to make sure every team has a weakness. You do not have enough cap space to solve every problem. You are picking your poison when you assemble a football team. The Rams have questions to answer at a variety of other positions: offensive tackle, wide receiver, defensive back, and so on. So if you're wondering why the Rams have never went out, except for that 1 year with Bobby Wagner, and said, let's get an elite guy on the second level, there's your reason. Angel City FC has signed sisters Alyssa and Giselle Thompson, meaning both will stay with the team through 2028. Alyssa's a forward. She scored 9 times in 53 matches. Giselle's a defender. Everybody's talking the happy, nice over it, to which I say Angel City missed the playoffs last year, so whatevs. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Talk to me, for example. Are you a Galaxy supporter, and does this have you on edge? For that matter, Anthony Davis, you think the Lakers are going to survive? And if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Cortel Queso production. Take care.